Hello, welcome to another episode of Mega Manga Monday. I am Jason Hahn, and today we are talking about One Piece, chapter 1069. We got a lot to talk about on this one. But we're a bunch of screen rant writers. Welcome to Mega Manga Mondays, and very excited to talk about lots of One Piece. Got some stuff, got some friends with me to talk about it, but I, Jason Hahn, have hosted Mega Manga Mondays, and One Piece is one of our favorites to talk about. So today, I've also got Ben with me. How you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty good. I'm also a writer for Screen Rant for the anime and manga and comic sections, and One Piece is my favorite manga of all time. So excited to discuss it.
Yeah, we had some series revelations once again, and we had another buddy who's very anxious to talk with us about some of the stuff in this chapter too. Francesco, good to have you on, man.
Hey guys, hello. Everything that Ben said basically goes for me too, so no need to repeat. But yeah, I'm also really happy to be back. And as you said, what a time to be One Piece fans.
Oh yeah, this arc's been incredible.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you told me a few months prior what was going to be happening in the next few chapters of One Piece, I would have been like, I don't believe you. That's too cool. I've got a whole bunch of notes. I guess we'll dive right into it. We've got the cover story was probably the least exciting thing because this chapter was just so. But
it's also maybe the most perplexing. What the hell? What hell's going? I had to Google that guy because I did not remember.
Right. Yeah, I had no knowledge of that guy, and it kind of felt like an odd thing to go back to the very origins and who paid for MADS and the Mad Scientists.
So that's your take. So that's the original MADS lab. It's not like a new one that he set up.
Yeah, I think it
weird.
is.
Yeah.
Because in 1068, it looked like they were flashing back to what the origins were. So I'm feeling this will be that. But, as you say, it could be a new version of it, too.
That would make sense, too. And I saw a couple YouTubers point out that it might be the same place that, Frankie, either I can't tell if it was either when he washed up when he was younger and kind of cyborged himself then, or if it was when Kuma zapped him back and he discovered some Vegapunk lab and he ended up needing to repair himself.
But there was on Vegapunk's what's the name?
Karakuri Island.
Karakuri,
Robot Island. Yeah.
Okay, that's right. Yeah. So it must have been when Frankie was younger then. I think it was after he got hit by the train, the sea train initially.
Yeah.
So kind of a very interesting connection there. And that would absolutely make sense because that would be a place that Frankie would be able to find, hyper advanced cybernetic enhancements and stuff like that. So it's all coming together with that one panel. But
that's still a speculation though, right? It's not confirmed. So
it's definitely one of those things that feels so right though. I would be surprised if it's something different, but
I could definitely see it.
I think it's the weirdest thing in a series full of crazy stuff that a guy gets hit by a train and somehow he survives and also has the strength and spirit to modify to perform high advanced surgery on himself.
It's classic One Piece, just he's got the will to do it, so he's doing it.
Our favorite narrative word somehow. Not a lot to talk about on that one. I'll be curious to see how that plays into something a little bit bigger later on, because I didn't really feel like that was a big mystery of who originally funded MADS. I always thought it was just kind of a government sort of thing, but I wonder if that character will come back for some reason or another. But like CP0, we'll jump right immediately into conflict here. So we picked off where we left off last time, and CP0, Lucci, and Luffy, rematch of the century. So excited to see them clash again. I really didn't think it was going to be happening this soon into this, but Yeah, just Luffy not willing to stop fighting, even though with Jinbei and Chopper telling him, hey, you're kind of a bigger deal now. You might want to not just pick a fight immediately. And well, Atlas fed us. So that's kind of, I need to kick this guy's ass.
Yeah, that was a big God, what's the name for it? Like we knew since last week that this was going to happen, right?
Yeah.
It's a classic thing that happens all the time. And also I love how we see Akainu saying, okay, so I hope these kids don't do anything. And then next panel,
cut to.
Bang!
Poor Akainu.
Flying around, and right, okay. I guess this promotion was not as good as they.
Yeah, I will say it has been very satisfying just seeing post time skip Akainu just be very, hassled by everything that's going on and being like, why did I take this job? Everything is happening. Of course it doesn't pay up for like Ace's death, that hasn't been made up yet.
Well, I don't know, man. Admin work, it's kind of hell,
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, every time we see him, he's in that new. He's going through the same situation where work sucks, and so it's the long, slow burn that I'm glad. As you said, it hasn't exactly paid for him killing Ace yet, but it's definitely on the way. So I would love it if him and Sengoku had some sort of conversation, and Sengoku's just like, "I told you this isn't cool. This isn't the job everybody wanted." But speaking of admirals and government, I mean, it kind of happened a few chapters ago where it was like, "Oh, that would be cool if this happened," but Kizaru got mentioned. And we have light gauntlets that will be able to fight against that. So that definitely felt like set up. But just the idea that we have Kuma, we have Kizaru, and we got CP0. Spoilers for the end of the chapter. We'll definitely get to talking about it more. But also Seraphim are going to be on CP0 side. Oh boy. I wonder if we're going to like finally see, fifth gear like tested. Because I feel like against Kaido, it was definitely a... oh man, what do I need to do to keep him down sort of thing. But I didn't feel like we saw like Luffy have to push it to the max to be able to win that fight. But him having to fight all these things possibly is, anticipation. But we also got Lucci using his awakened Zohan powers, which was very exciting.
Actually, it's a huge thing, guys, because we've been debating for months about the big question, like breaking the community in two. That was like, did Kaido use his awakened form or not? And now we know that he definitely didn't, because that looks completely different from what Lucci used, and also these things he has around
like the back.
Actually, they're exactly the same as what Luffy has.
Just black versus white.
Just different color. So I suppose they're kind of a sign, like a common sign of that awakening going on, which means that Kaido really did not awaken his fruit, which in hindsight I think makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and also it's like, people have been debating for a while, is Chopper's devil fruit awakened? Like, he can use all these different forms of it. And from this, as you say, like, it's very clear that Chopper's has not, because
it's I think it makes sense for Kaido, because it's I mean, he's a guy who does not like having a devil fruit, basically, right?
Yeah.
He says that, all right, he says only Haki can whatever make you conquer the seas, or whatever he said, right? And he and while of course he has been basically force feeding his man devil fruits, it was just it's a military asset, right? In his own case, we should remember that he only ate the fruit because a big mom gave it to him I guess to save his life after the battle. Maybe he needed to fly away or whatever. He was trapped, because when she reminds him of that moment, it's sort of like, you owe me something, right? So it was not just, take this, it's a gift and then you pay me back later. It was like, kind of, I saved your life, right? Which means if he had a choice, he would have perhaps never actually relied on anything other than haki. But this is all speculation. Like, we were just, maybe like 20 years from now, when we will have One Piece data book 50th anniversary
definitive edition
interview with Oda, he will say that. But for now, it makes sense. It doesn't mean that Kaido will come back, honestly. Then you go into that crazy fun debates. Oh, he's coming back because it's not fair that he lost, blah blah blah. It's clear that the speed of the series has changed. You see any comebacks or stuff like that.
Yeah, and also it's like, it was never a part of Kaido's character to really need an awakened devil fruit, right?
Yeah.
Like, even without the awakening, he was still the strongest character in the series this far, right? Like, that's his purpose, and he served that purpose.
Right.
So there's no real narrative need for him to come back with an awakened devil fruit, unless at the end of the series, Im-sama puppeteers old foes or something.
Oh, that's so Chainsaw Man. It's so
funny.
Please don't.
Yeah, I've been firmly in the camp for until this chapter that Kaido's hybrid form was his awakened version. But you guys have definitively convinced me otherwise, and I think it makes more sense. The more we think about it, because Kaido's always been so confident in his own ability that it makes sense that he would never be like, I don't need to focus on leveling up my devil fruit or awakening that because I'm already strong enough.
And we also kind of know now that there is someone or something else inside these fruits, right? It's kind of my takeaway if we want to discuss that after. There is the spirit, the legacy of whatever or whoever created these centuries ago. I mean, at least that's my sort of a theory based on what we know, right? And it goes with what Vegapunk says, that Zoan awakenings, they are very hard to control, and often you lose your mind, right? Like the guys in Impel Down did. Okay, so maybe Kaido just didn't want to go there because he didn't want to lose control or whatever. Maybe we'll see Lucci losing control. That's an interesting idea for.
I think Vegapunk definitely he mentioned that and may have teased it, but I kind of feel like Lucci has become that character that the government wants. Them. They want Lucci to be the top tier, strongest.
The John Cena.
Yeah, the John Cena of the government, I guess. So I think that Vegapunk specifically being oh wow, this is amazing. Most people lose their minds when they awaken their Zoan fruit, but Lucci's just built different. And honestly, I'm really, really glad that Lucci did all this. As soon as we heard oh, it's good, we're gonna get a rematch between Luffy and Lucci, I was just I don't think this is gonna go very well for Lucci at all. But Oda, of course, surprising us once again, and somehow for me personally, Luffy versus Lucci is my favorite fight of all of One Piece. Of course, there's other moments that are about as good, but for me, Luffy doing his Gum Gum Gatling for the first time against Lucci, the anime too, I just think of that moment and hair on my arm stands up. I'm so intense. I loved it. So when I first heard about this rematch, I was like, okay, that could be interesting, but I don't really see how it could get to, a higher level because we already got to the maximum level of coolness with these two characters. And Oda found a way. Oda found a way to make it interesting. And with all of these converging parts with, we have an Admiral in the way and Kuma, the Seraphim. Speaking of the Seraphim, we've got Hawkeye, Jinbei, and Hancock there. I'm going to be really disappointed if Hancock doesn't have a special reaction when she sees Luffy. But that might give Oda a chance to clarify that the Seraphim might not have personality, or maybe they are like 100% robotic. So I almost wonder, like, if we'll get into a situation where Hancock's about to attack Luffy and there's a glimpse of like, oh my God, is she gonna like instantly fall for him? Or is it going to be like purely robotic and show that they have no personalities? I think that might be something we see coming up.
It's so interesting. I think her fruit doesn't work yet because it relies, on you being attracted or disgusted or whatever, and she's just a child. So, Oda, that's a very shaky ground.
Yeah, it's never stopped the Japanese before.
And I also love how Jinbe just knows else that he just runs by. He sees a cyber clone of himself, which is also a weapon of his worst enemies, and he totally no-sells it. It's like, oh, did they clone us? Wow, okay.
That's weird.
It's classic Jinbe, just the stoic sort of, interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I've always enjoyed with Jinbe throughout this entire arc, is he's essentially the dad. I mean, even his outfit was the Hawaiian shirt, like the dad on vacation. And he just, Oda breaking up the groups brilliantly, getting like Jinbe's, cold logic, well, not cold, but logical, like, oh, wow, so that's how the devil fruits work, or something like that, when they were talking to Vegapunk. And so, I mean, it's definitely that voice of reason we need with this group, because we have Luffy, Chopper, and Bonnie. So, I mean, I almost wonder, like, how this is going to pair off, because if they do need to fight the Seraphim, then Jinbe fighting the Jinbe Seraphim could be pretty interesting.
It's interesting to see if these Seraphims are actually things that a crew member can fight, because remember that one of them kind of got no scratches from fighting Blackbeard, which was sort of totally out of the power levels of the series. As they could be something that basically no one besides an emperor can touch, which is weird. I think, don't go there. Like, people will get crazy over this.
I mean, with his previous fight with King is all I'm like, because
but clearly you're not on Twitter a lot, right? Because One Piece, I think there is a very vocal part of the One Piece community that spends I think 90% of their lives debating if Zoro is stronger than Sanji, and if they can beat Yonko, if they can beat
Kaido. I remember Zoro kills Kaido.
Yeah, the power scalers.
Guys, get a life.
Oh. Well, how much prep time does Zoro have?
Yeah,
is he the Batman of One Piece?
They have words I don't understand, like beef or stuff like that. I don't know. Anyways, let's go back to the series.
Well, I mean, I was going to say this chapter also kind of like instituted, like, you would love to think that at the end of every arc, the Straw Hat Pirates are sitting on the Sunny and they explain to all the fellow crew members their fight and their new powers that they've awakened and all that. But this chapter kind of instituted, like, Vegapunk asking like Nami and them, so what's up with this like Gear 5th? And they're just like, I don't know, gum powers, right? And they're like, and he's like, no, this is like Nika, sun god. Wait, Luffy's a god? No, he's just a dummy. He's Luffy. And
also all differences in the translation. I just want to mention this because you quoted Sanji saying he's a dummy, and I remember the fan translation was very different for that balloon there. So that's why it's always important to read both versions, because I don't want to say that Viz doesn't do a great job in translating, but I think sometimes they take a few liberties, and sometimes it's best to always have, like a literal translation, because let's face it, like everything that they say in this manga can be relevant. So it's always best to look at both, I think.
Absolutely.
So what did they say in the fan translation?
I can't remember for that specific panel, but there was like the main difference was that the fan translation got the title and the whole theme of this chapter as like people's dreams, people's desires, while desire, while the this translation goes for dreams. I think. What's the title?
It's like all things are brought into this world with hope.
So, hope. Sorry, hope.
Yeah.
So this went with hope, while the fan translation went for like these desire/dreams. Okay. So it's kind of different because then you have haki, which is willpower. So there was an interesting, sort of parallel between desire and willpower and all of that. But then they went with hope, and it's a totally different translation for Vegapunk explanation. And I think it makes more sense the way that Viz did it. Because
I need to check the Japanese on this.
Yes, absolutely. And but the way that it's translated explains much better what I was talking about earlier about someone in the past like had a dream, had a hope, or whatever, and that these created the devil fruits, and then were sort of a legacy of these dreams, of these hopes for the future or whatever.
Yeah, I almost wonder, like, I mean, this was just it was classic Oda, giving you something that you wish you had known, but it just gives you even more questions.
Absolutely.
So I'm almost thinking, not to get like religious here, but if it's sort of like a Jesus sort of thing, like if there was a Jesus character who is just like, tell me what you desire the most, like, oh, I'm blind, I wish I could see. It's like, okay, well, there you go, now you can see. I almost wonder if it's the same sort of thing.
The Jesus fruit.
Yeah. Well, even like, I mean, the central, like the beginning of all these devil fruits and stuff. It's almost insinuating that there was some central main source that was able to turn people's hopes and desires into physical form.
So very, very, very quickly, like the fan translation for the title is "We all there is to desire," while the Viz translation for the title is "All things are brought into this world with hope," which is sort of an odd, it's an odd phrase.
I think the Viz translation might be more accurate. I mean, I have a very limited knowledge of Japanese. I was mainly looking for if the word for hope, kibo, or dream, yume, was in the title, and neither were. But like the title makes it seem like, from my limited knowledge of it, it is like things being born or like brought into the world. So
exactly. I think that's why I think it's more accurate. And also, if you go to the page where Luffy and Lucci are recreating their iconic like punch clash scene, right?
So
there
cool.
There is the panel at the leftmost when we see Nika's face, right? So it's in the fans translation, Vegapunk says, one who has eaten a devil fruit lives a totally alien existence.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's very different.
Born out of limitless permutations of imagination, which I immediately thought it wasn't like a weird translation, right? Then if you look at the official translation, it says those with powers exist in different dimensions, which is kind of that. This is kind of the same, right? But then it says dreamed up by someone else before them.
Yeah,
that was
inherited will. Yeah.
Yes, this is a huge difference that kind of made total sense. And of course, we are here debating all these, and then the next panel he says, "Well, but this is only my view."
The theory of the smartest man in the entire One Piece world, though. So, if we're going to take it with a grain of salt, bring a truck, because that's a big ass grain of salt. But then that brings into question the whole, like, him being able to clone these fruits too. Does that clone the will? Like, how I'm wondering how that's all going to fit into it too. We need to know more about these devil fruits. But this is the first tidbit after 25 years that we've gotten more details on the origins of the devil fruits. but I'm really, really liking. We got Vegapunk, and most of the Straw Hat crew able to see this entire fight from a distance. But as soon as Vegapunk entered, he saw Shaka, and that throws my theory away. I was thinking Shaka was maybe not actually a Vegapunk and somebody who was wearing a mask and fooling everybody. I was expecting original Vegapunk to be like, wait, who are you? And then that would have been a big betrayal thing. But if one of the Vegapunks is going to betray now, it seems like it'd be Lilith. But speaking of betraying and traitors and all that, Sentomaru finally made an appearance after hundreds of chapters.
No.
And supposed to be like the pinnacle of defensive armament hockey, and they are one-shotted at the end of this chapter, supposedly. If that's all we get of Sentomaru, I'm going to be quite disappointed.
And they're not just one-shotted, but they're one-shotted with a pistol attack by Lucci, which I thought was really cool because, Luffy's the pistol guy. He's got the Gum Gum No pistol, and he uses the mole pistol this chapter. And Lucci's like, I can use pistol attacks too.
I think this is one of his classic like 6 techniques. I think the first one was called Rokuogan, which I think it's pistol something.
Oh, so was it translated as pistol though back then? Because I don't remember.
I can't remember.
I think it was gun. I think it was Rokugo gun.
Rokushiki techniques, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious. I need to then go back and check to see if it's the same Japanese, and they just decided to change the translation then, because I interpreted this as like Lucci learned from his past fights with Luffy and like have sort of adapted some of his techniques. But if this is just his old standard attack, then
I think it's the Rokuogan, which means whatever. Official English name: 6 King Gun or 6 King Pistol from Viz.
So it was called 6 King Pistol before. So I guess this is just a different form of that. Okay,
you're kind of onto something there, though, Ben. I think it would be amazing.
This is a secret 7th technique, actually.
Oh, so is that like? Did he use that in the fight against Luffy then, or is this
yes?
new?
Yes, and Lucci's the only one who can use this.
Okay. Well, I would love it if Lucci, like at the end, pulls out like his own exactly what you're going with, Ben. Like he learned from Luffy's fight, and he's like implemented some of Luffy's techniques. Some sort of Lucci Gatling attack would be really, really cool. But Francesco, I know we're getting kind of close to. I know you got to dip out kind of soon. Did you have any final things you wanted to throw out, or thoughts or recommendations, or
just there's some Sentomaru's quest. I think this is an example of how inevitably Oda. I think he cannot develop everything that he cooked up until now, right? He introduced this character, and then the story simply did not leave any room for him anymore, right? Because there's so many questions that, like, why is he Vegapunk's bodyguard? Why is he betraying the world government? And they were just dismissed with, I saved your life and I fed you when you were hungry.
It took like 2 panels.
That's everything. That's everything we're gonna get, and I think that's the.
I mean, I don't know. I kind of would disagree with you there. I think there might be more with Kuma's flashback, because we're definitely getting a Kuma flashback.
Oh yeah, hopefully.
So if we see Kuma meeting Vegapunk and all that stuff, Sentomaru could have been a kid in the kingdom who something happened to him. It could be tied in with all that. So
I hope, and he could also join the crew, because if Vegapunk is joining, at least temporarily. But the one thing I actually wanted to say before sadly logging off is that we saw in this chapter how One Piece fights will be from now on. Because this is the second time in a row that we see Gear 5th, and all the crazy hijinks and shenanigans we saw with Kaido, that's it from now on. That's how
Luffy fights.
Yeah, which is, I don't know how I feel about it, because I understand the reasoning behind it, but honestly, I did enjoy way more Gear Fort or whatever, because I think the fights were more gritty and serious and whatever.
Yeah.
You could have comedy in there, but it was not the main thing. Here it's literally the main thing. So it's a big change for the series, something that maybe people are underestimating right now. Like, imagine after 30 years or whatever, we get to the final fight of the series, whatever it is going to be, Luffy versus, I don't know, Bellamy, whatever final, and you see him like removing his head and doing Willy Coyote stuff. How will you take that? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's all in how Oda pulls it off, which I think we really saw in the Kaido fight, because there's all this crazy stuff going on. It was much more comedic, but at the same time, there were some serious moments in that fight and some seriously epic moments in that fight. Despite all the Looney Tunes shenanigans.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, in Oda we trust. So but great observation there. I mean, I love for me, Snake Man is one of the most epic things, especially like getting to see enemies like have to dodge it, and it's just the yelling and the excitement, and the shonen like getting pumped up, and it's
I think it was a nightmare to draw. No, I think that was very hard to draw.
Yeah,
that's one of the reasons why. I mean, guys, remember the whole reason why Super Saiyan exists is that Toriyama did not want to ink the hair.
Really?
That's real. That's legit. So maybe Oda was tired of coloring and inking Gear Fort or whatever. So let's make it all white.
That makes sense. Well, I know he's always wanted to make it like a comedic and sort of thing. And he's even said like in interviews, like he wishes that comics still had like the light bulb and, we're still like silly. So he almost developed his own like ultra instinct, but instead of it being like dodging and your body moving before you think about it, he's just like, what if it's just funny instead and silly? So yeah, getting to see how things are going to be able to counteract that is pretty exciting. But Francesco, I really appreciate you making the time to come with us, man.
It was a pleasure. I'll see you guys next week for the return of Dragon Ball Super.
Yeah. Yeah, the prequel to Superhero, which we loved immensely. We
exactly did 1 week from now.
Yeah, we'll definitely be doing a Mega Manga Mondays podcast on Dragon Ball Super. But hope to have you on that one, buddy.
And here's my plug. Done.
No.
Okay, guys, enjoy the rest of the podcast. See you soon.
Yeah, see you.
Thank you. Always good to hear from Francesco. You can see his articles on Screen Rant. He's got a lot. He writes for a lot of different series, so definitely check out his works there. But yeah, Ben, I feel like I've been kind of gabbing. What were some highlights for you on this chapter?
Honestly, I think we've covered the big ones. To be fair, this wasn't a full 20-page chapter. It was slightly shorter.
Really?
Which a lot of them have been lately, but I haven't been complaining because I was stuffed too much into it. So it's been perfectly fine. Give us more chapters like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was pretty much everything. I do find it funny. We mentioned a bit earlier that, the Straw Hats just did not know that this is the, Nika fruit, which makes perfect sense. But them reacting to it, where it's kind of similar to fan reactions, where it's like, what? I thought it was the gum fruit. I thought, for like the casual fans, that is. Of course, there are always the, mega fans who are like, oh, we knew this was not the gum fruit for years.
Yeah, come on, scrubs, get to our level. I one interesting thing about that I thought was Vegapunk specifically being like, even in the oldest Devil Fruit books I've read, they've never mentioned anything about a gum fruit. That doesn't exist. And So I mean, it's just like, does Vegapunk know like every single devil fruit that exists?
I think that's the implication, or like all the ones that have been recorded. Because Vegapunk like reads everything. Like Vegapunk is just an encyclopedia basically.
Yeah, he is the internet.
Yeah. So it makes sense.
Excuse me.
But yeah, I loved that little moment. But honestly, I think that we covered it all pretty much.
Well, I've got a whole list of notes here, so I can keep going.
Oh, okay. I mean, there was the thing with the sort of authority chip stuff, but I don't really think that was that important.
Well, I thought it was really interesting. Like the five elders are on the top of the list, of course, but it was, and I don't know if this was in the fan translation, but they explained that they cannot deliver the orders through transponder snails either. Which kind of throws out the whole. Is like, well, Vegapunk can still order them, right? But then they explained just like, no, they can't say it over a transponder snail. So that's definitely adding to the tension here.
Well, Vegapunk can still say it in person, though.
So. Yeah, he just has to be there. And at this point, we don't have a Vegapunk on the battlefield.
Yeah, because Atlas was taken out.
Yeah, which I would love it if we get a situation where, like, as Chopper said, this is more Frankie's forte to be able to fix Atlas. It gives Frankie a great opportunity to, use his abilities on the fly and possibly fix Atlas, which gives the opportunity for him to impress Vegapunk even more, especially the original Vegapunk, which was one of my favorite panels. Well, there's a lot of amazing panels in this chapter for sure, but as soon as original Vegapunk gets into that room, you see Frankie like,
oh yeah, hard eyes,
hard eyes shooting out, and it's this arc's been kind of strange because we all assumed it was going to be very Frankie heavy, and I feel like that kind of got brushed aside for some like really good heartfelt Robin stuff, which I would not want to get rid of. I loved that. I'm a huge Robin fan, so those were excellent. But I'm still waiting for Frankie to have his moment in this arc, and it keeps on teasing.
I mean, who knows how it's going to turn out, right? Like everyone said, Wano was going to be Zoro's arc, and in many ways it was, but we didn't get as much of Zoro as we thought we would. So maybe the same thing will be here with Frankie.
Possibly.
We'll have to wait and see in later chat. Like once the arc's all done, then we'll be able to fully evaluate. But one of the great things about this arc, in my opinion, is that we have no clear end of it in sight. Like no clear end goal. That once this happens, then the arc will be over, and that makes it really exciting to read because you just don't know what's going to happen next.
Well, speaking of what could happen next, Sentomaru throwing out the plan of, hey, get the Straw Hats to the dome or the vacuum rocket. And so we've had Elbath teased, and another popular theory I've been seeing on Twitter is the moon or some sort of space island, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah, well, that would happen most likely a lot later in the series. Because the moon has a lot of secrets, which is very clear from like Enel's cover story and stuff. And there are even theories that the D in the Will of D is not actually a D, but a half moon.
I heard that.
Yeah, that was a big theory that I saw going around a while back. But so I think the moon could potentially be a stop later on, but not quite yet. I feel like going from the moon to Elbath would be a bit of a step down. I feel like we go Elbath first and then, but it definitely could be an option for some point in the series. And we didn't expect to get this sort of arc right after Wano. So who knows with Oda?
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of the thing with Vegapunk too, and I think that I don't know if it's been explicitly said in the series, but one of the other big theories that I've heard is the advanced civilization came from the moon, the one that was wiped out, and that it established that they were on Egghead Island 200 years ago, or whenever the Void Century was, the hyper advanced civilization. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of feel like that would be an appropriate place to go after this, but um, yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, getting to see more Fifth Gear in action. I loved the Gum Gum Mole pistol, Luffy punching the ground, and then the ground literally coming up and punching uh, Lucci in the chest was really cool. I laughed out loud in joy when that happened. Just the whole idea that Luffy awakened Devil Fruit before Fifth Gear was, shown. A lot of people were thinking, oh, he's going to be able to like rubberize things around him, and that's kind of what's happening, just in a more cartoony sort of way. So that was really a joy. Just excited to see more of that sort of Luffy stuff in action, which is honestly what I was kind of disappointed with One Piece Red about, because they had it teased that Fifth Gear was going to be in it. And we definitely talked about it a lot in our One Piece Red discussion. Feel free to go back and check out Mega Manga Mondays One Piece Red podcast. But I was really hoping to see stuff like this in that. But I think at that point they just wanted to tease Fifth Gear and not necessarily show, new stuff with Fifth Gear in the
It was
movie.
probably better that it did that, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, I think I said this in our discussion. I wasn't too torn up about Fifth Gear not being used too much in that movie. I was fine with just the short tease, because that was like the best of both worlds. You please the manga readers for the reference, and the anime onlys aren't spoiled. And I guess not everyone was happy with that, but I think it makes the most sense. So
Yeah, I see your point on that. I'm definitely in the disappointed camp on that one, but that's my own issues. I got to work with that. But let's see. Frankie fixing Atlas. Yeah, just with everything converging on here, and who knows when Kizaru and Kuma are going to show up. That's kind of what these past couple chapters have set up, is they could show up at any point in time, and I'm sure it'll happen at the most exciting parts. But yeah, kind of going through my notes, I think that was about everything I had. I think the last thing I wanted to bring up too, which I thought was just an interesting parallel, I don't think it'll turn into something bigger, but I thought it was cool how Vegapunk sees Luffy and instantly he's like, oh my god, he's like a god of olden days, and reminded me of the old guy's reaction in Wano prison.
yeah, the five elders, or the guy who trained Luffy.
Yeah, and the new form of hockey, or Rio.
Yeah.
But as soon as he saw like Fourth Gear, he's just like, oh my god, he looks like an ancient god, and just this is the second time that's happened where somebody's seen Luffy fighting and they're like, oh, he's like a god, and he legitimately is now with Fifth Gear and the Sun God and all that stuff. But
yeah, there's a reason.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess the last thing we could talk about too, because I feel like it's hours worth of conversation and speculating, but the whole Devil Fruit, almost in the official translation, them going to the users are almost in a separate dimension, is what it's saying, which is why the ocean, one of the world's most natural things, rejects Devil Fruit users, because they pretty much exist in a state of unnaturalness. I think is the easiest way to say it.
Yeah.
So I mean, what are your thoughts on that, man? Like, do you feel like it's some sort of dimensional powers that, I don't know, it just feels like a big rabbit hole, Matrix style.
Well, I mean, like, I feel like they exist in different dimensions is kind of vague. It could just be metaphorical, right? It could be like literally different dimensions. Although that gets into a bit of weirdness. I mean, it could be. Again, like, this is just a theory of Vegapunk's, so who knows how much Oda is actually putting this forward as, like, the hard science, or whether Oda's just putting this out there to be like, hand wave over actually making superpowers in this world, right? So I mean, I don't know. I kind of interpret it as just like they're on a different level, kind of, right? Effectively. I don't think that the sort of existing in different dimensions thing will ever make a huge impact, like story-wise. Like, it's not going to be like different dimensions, like they're from parallel worlds, because they're not. It's just they're operating in a different zone, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious. Like, we kind of talked about it before, but it almost made it seem like there had to be some sort of source that was able to convert desire into the physical world. And honestly, Luffy kind of has that ability. At least it was teased during the Kaido thing, where it's just like Luffy can pretty much imagine what he needs to do, or that's kind of been the whole thing throughout all of One Piece. Is whenever Luffy's put up against a wall, he figures out how to use his power to do what he needs to do. Like with Gear 2nd and 3rd, he needed to figure out a way to get stronger after Ice Admiral guy, froze them all and made them all feel weak. Then they were like, we need to get stronger. And that's what Luffy's ability pretty much did. Was he's just like, I need to get stronger. I need to be able to punch harder. And that's what he was able to manifest. So I'm almost wondering if like the Nika Sun God Devil Fruit may have been like the origin, like the very first one, maybe.
Yeah,
we don't have enough info. But.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility. There could also be other god fruits that one of the other god fruits made them as well. We just don't know enough right now, as you say. But I think it's definitely, good to think along those lines. Maybe there was sort of a progenitor fruit, or maybe just a progenitor who made all the fruits. And then, of course, because someone desired to be like them, one of the fruits for them appeared, right? So it's just, there's so much we don't know right now. Probably will not know for quite some time. We're definitely going to get a flashback at some point in the series of like the ancient times, and like seeing Joy Boy in action and all that stuff.
Oh man!
But that's way in the series future, probably on Raftel. So yeah, I'm excited for that to happen, but I think we're only going to get tantalizing peaks before then.
Well, until then, it shall be fun to speculate with you,
That's
brother.
That's true.
All right, man. Well, unless you've got anything else on One Piece chapter 1069.
No, that's it for me.
All right, I guess we'll
It's
go ahead.
It's a very nice chapter.
Yeah, it just this, as we've said, this arc has just been spoiling us. Like every chapter feels so satisfying, so rich in reveals. It's a blast. I'm so glad I'm caught up on One Piece.
Oh yeah.
But that'll do it for this episode of Mega Manga Monday. Going to go ahead and move into plugs and recommendations. Please listen to other Mega Manga Monday podcasts. We talk about other series as well, like My Hero Academia, Chainsaw Man, Dragon Ball Super, all kinds of stuff. But you can find us on Twitter and YouTube, and we have an official website called megamangamondays.podbean.com. Would love to hear your thoughts too. Feel free to subscribe, follow, leave comments, all that. Would love to hear from you if there's anything that you felt like we missed. Would also love to hear your favorite parts of the chapter. Would love to hear from you. But we're all writers on Screen Rant. Please check out our works there. I write in the video game stuff. I write reviews, and I actually got to try out the new One Piece game. Bandai Namco flew me out to San Diego, and I got to play One Piece on the world's oldest sailing ship. So I got to play a pirate video game on a pirate ship. It was really cool. The game's awesome too. It's a turn-based strategy sort of game, kind of like Pokemon or old school Final Fantasy. And they did a fantastic job, like writing all the characters and getting all the moves in there. It's a joy. So look forward to One Piece Odyssey. I also have another YouTube series called Honzy and Friends. I do comedic Let's Play videos. We got Metal Gear Solid 2 and Dragon Ball Budokai Tenkaichi 4 on there right now, playing through the whole story of Dragon Ball Z with some friends. We have a lot of fun on there, and it'll probably make you laugh and smile. So please check out Honzy and Friends on YouTube. Ben, how about you, man?
Yeah, in terms of recommendations, I don't think I've recommended this on the channel yet, but the third batch of JoJo's Part 6 Stone Ocean episode came out about 2 weeks ago, so a bit late to recommend, but they did it really well, did a really good job. So I gotta recommend it. It was a very, very good ending to this whole franchise. I mean, there definitely could be adaptations of 7 and 8 in the future, and 9 potentially. But it looks like David Studios is sort of not. They don't have plans at the moment to make those yet. So this is the end of JoJo's for potentially some time in terms of anime. Wow. So, and they definitely capped it off beautifully. So
that was actually whenever I go on a big flight, I try to download a movie or start a new series, and that's strange enough. That's actually what I downloaded. The first few episodes of Stone Ocean. I didn't love Golden Wind. I got like maybe a third through it, and I was just like, "This is too silly." And
too silly.
Yeah, like the powers just got like I got to the episode where they're like, we're on a boat and everyone's mysteriously disappearing, and then it's just like this guy's powers is able to copy and he's able to hide in the small cracks between the things. And I was just like, that's
like 3 episodes in. That's not.
I guess I didn't get that far then. Yeah. But I started up Stone Ocean, and it's a lot more interesting and compelling. Locking new character like in a prison, and everything just feels a lot more focused.
Well, I'll say this: the abilities in Stone Ocean are much sillier than the abilities in Golden Wind. So, yeah. Luckily, you don't need Part 5 for enjoyment of Part 6. But
yeah,
I mean, Part 5 is one of the best animated parts of JoJo's. So
all right.
I recommend you go back to it at some point. But yeah, that's my recommendation. So
excellent,
very, very good stuff. And in terms of plugs, I have a YouTube channel of my own called YGO from Zero, where I go over historical formats of the Yu-Gi-Oh trading card game. So if that's something that interests you, be sure to check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Last time I checked, you're getting a good amount of views and subscribers, man. Congrats.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy with it. Like, people are enjoying the videos, so it makes me feel good to know that they like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I'm going to have links in our links to all of our plugs and recommendations in the description. So please check those out. We put a lot of work into some of our stuff. So please check those out. We would really appreciate it. But that'll do it for this episode of Manga Mondays. As I said, you can find us on the website and follow us on Twitter at Manga Mondays. But would love to hear from you. And I look forward to the next one.
Yeah, me too. See you then.
Peace.